Hi, I'm Terry Murphy, and yep, it's Monday, and it's Money Mondays with the wonderful Krisstina Wise, and you know about her. She's a mogul in real estate. She's a coach. She is the creator of several multi-million-dollar platforms, including the Good Life Luxury, the Paperless Agent, and most recently, why we're here, Wealthy and Wealthy. I love that, Krisstina. International speaker, author of Amazon bestseller, Falling for Money. It's a romance novel about money, not men. Thank you, much more dependable. Named one of the 100 most influential people and leaders in real estate. USA Today, Apple, the whole thing. She's a freaking rock star, okay? And one of the reasons that we are thrilled, honored, and grateful to spend time with her is because one of her core values is to help people, but she really puts her money where her mouth is. And we talk about specifically helping women in this case, but everybody, with building a wealthy life. And I'm so glad you're here with us today because I have a great question for you, Krisstina. Welcome.
Thank you.
She says, thank you, little humble girl, little tiny blonde girl. Yeah, so every Monday we do this. And you offer lots of resources, and you have literally worked yourself to death. And you realized at some point it was more important to be well, W-E-L-L -the than wealthy, but you can have both. And something that kind of really resonated with me was the New Yorker had a great article on the imposter syndrome. And it's written by Leslie Jameson, and she talks about not fooling anyone, the psychological part of imposter. And where I was going with that is, I recently, not on purpose, walked into a store that had Ferragamo in it, and I didn't know it was Ferragamo, and I saw this beautiful handbag that was simple, and I had one similar, only to find out mine wasn't the real deal, but it was by Lady Di. Used to love it because it had a chain and she could make it like an accessory, and that sucker cost 2,700 American dollars, not including tax. And I thought to myself, well, how many of us think that if we wear something that makes us look successful, that we will think our way into being financially successful to actually afford, if you wanted something like that as a, to have? And what say you?
Yeah, the imposter, that's an interesting term, imposter syndrome. So I can see it through two different lenses. One is imposter syndrome, where we feel like an imposter, meaning we might have the credentials and we might have some expertise, but we kind of say, who am I to be teaching this? So that's one form of imposter syndrome, which I think we can all relate to, which it's like, who am I to get on that stage and talk about money? Who am I to get on that stage and talk about leadership? Who am I? So that's one form of imposter syndrome, which is healthy in a way because it keeps us centered and grounded to make sure that we really are who we say we are. But on the other hand, it can be a self-confidence issue where it keeps us from performing because we're not perfect enough to go teach or lead or speak. So that's one form of imposter syndrome. Another form that you're talking about, I think, is where we're trying to put on an image that we're not. And we do that through buying stuff, through labels. So,
Like that, but if you can't afford a pair of Jimmy Choos or Louboutins, and yet you wear them, you're trying to send a message. And I'm saying what comfort there is when you've really got a plan. And I'm not saying deny yourself anything, trust me, but when you have a financial plan that can support those choices in your life, and you do it so beautifully when you talk about your buckets and how we get there. But at the end of the day, there's nothing that feels better than financial security, in my opinion. And yeah, there's all kinds of imposter syndrome. There's who am I and who do I think I am? That's another whole segment. But for this one, I'm thinking from a money standpoint, from a affordability, from what we show people on the outside. You have some incredibly good initiatives and strategies that you teach in your Wealthy and your Wise Money method that helps people understand that you can get there and you can buy all the stuff you want if you set up your life to do so. So what, in your opinion, what would be the first step?
Yeah, well, I think the first step is to understand the concept of trade-offs. And I teach that a lot, that on one hand, money is abundant in the sense that there's plenty of money, that it's like the opposite of the scarcity mindset, where we feel like, oh, if you have yours, I can't have mine. There's only so much. So that's that's this belief in scarcity and kind of the fear around money. But money's abundant in the sense that we can create money out of nothing, right? So there's just all ways to create money and be innovative, and I love making money. So, but again, that's the mindset of there's plenty, and there's plenty of money to be made. At the same time, any given month or year, there's a limit. So there's a limit to how much money we have, let's say, in our bank account right now. It's finite. So we can't spend more than that's the amount. So if we made $10,000 this month, we can spend $10,000 this month. If we made $20,000 this month, we can spend 20,000, not 10,001, not 20,001. So that's the finite piece. So within that, let's say $10,000, we need to understand trade-offs. So part of the trade-off, what we're doing when we're buying a life to look a certain way so that we can be judged a certain way, like you said, with the shoes, with the bags, with the Mercedes emblem, with the BMW emblem, whatever it is, like all these emblems, that what we do many times we don't realize is trying to get this external gratification and try to fit in, or for people to think we're something that maybe we're not truly. We're trading that illusion for financial security, because there's a trade-off, because we can either spend money on those things in that finite amount, or we can take that same amount and we can put it towards financial security to make sure we have cash or investments or something that then builds the security. And the real financial confidence and security comes from having money, like having money in the form of cash, having money in the form of assets, having money that's available, so that if something happens, then we've got cash resources, or we have assets that we can depend on. So typically what we don't realize is that we're trying to buy confidence through this illusion of, hey, I have money that I may not have, versus really having money because we've actually don't care so much what others think, but we care about our lives and our own real security and confidence. So what we don't understand is we're usually trading one for the other, when ultimately at the end of the day, we all want financial security, financial confidence, and financial freedom. But we're never going to get there when we're living this life of, like you said, of imposter syndrome.
And I think you say really well in the program, because when we look at the elements of the program of money-wise, is that you really have to know what you spend a month to live. And we're talking food, shelter, clothing here. Fixed things, because there's so many things that I found with the coaching people I have, is that they pay for things they don't even know they have, and they're not using them. Paying for leads, or paying for programs that they've never. How about that gym membership? Oh, right, that one's a heavy one. So would you say starting with just sitting down with a budget and going, what does it cost you to be you every month?
Yeah, so the step-by-step approach is exactly that. First of all, so the first thing is let's say the question is, do I want to be a millionaire? That's a question. Do I want to be a millionaire? And if the question is yes, then the next question is, okay, what is a millionaire?
To you. Yeah.
Like, so what is a millionaire? And that's where it gets confusing, because people think, oh, if I make $1 million in my business, then I'm a millionaire. Versus, I'm getting a little bit of a feedback. Can you hear that?
Are you? I'm not hearing anything.
So a lot of times we think, oh, if I make $1 million revenue in my business, I'm a millionaire. No, what a millionaire means is that I have $1 million net worth. And that $1 million net worth, using just rule of thumb financial doctrine, is about $50,000 of passive income. So what we want ultimately is we want $1 million so that $1 million will pay $50,000 without having to work. So that's goal one. The goal one is, first and foremost, my number one intention is to become a millionaire within a certain period of time. When we do that, by making that commitment, that is the exact first step. But nobody tells us that. So when we now make a personal declaration, a personal promise that I want to be a millionaire, and I want to be a millionaire because being a millionaire produces $50,000-ish of passive income. What that means is that the cost, assuming no debt, the cost of survival, meaning you can put food on your table, you can afford electricity, you can afford some transportation, you can afford a basic roof over your head. Just the minimum survival amount to survive in this country is roughly $50,000. So what that means, if you don't have the expensive lifestyle, if you're just living, if you're just, surviving, food's paid for, housing's paid for, not expensive housing, average housing, there's, a really just average life, let's say, nothing wrong with average, that's going to cost $50,000 a year, about $4,500 a month. So that's why we want to get to some stage in our life where the basics are covered. And we want to get there as quickly as possible. So imagine if you didn't have to work, if you didn't have to worry about, like, if you didn't have to think about, is my electricity paid for? Is my food paid for? Is my health care paid for? Is my basic rent paid for? And is it my basic transportation paid for? If all of that was paid for from like a trust fund, how much financial pressure would that take off of us, knowing the essentials are covered?
Yeah, see, I think we underestimate, especially as women, the stress that it just kind of runs like a computer program in the back of your head, of making the donuts every day. And depending on your age group, you think you're going to live forever. You think you're going to be healthy forever, and things can happen. And I've seen that just even recently with people that I work with, where something completely bizarre out of the sky happens. And when that happens, it interrupts that living paycheck to paycheck thing. So you said you make the declaration, you've made the data content is 50,000, give or take, to live, depending on where you are. And then what would be the next step?
So then the next step is, how much do I need to save and invest to be able to have $1 million of net worth within, let's say, 10 years? So then that's the second step, is to put that into what's called a reverse compounding calculator. And you say, and you can Google reverse compounding calculator on Google. And you put in there that I want to have $1 million in 10 years. And I think, I could get an average interest rate of like 10%. Just play with it. And let's say that spits out that you need to put away, let's say $6,000 a month. I'm just making up numbers. Let's just say $5,000 a month. That spits out that you need to put $5,000 a month away, $60,000 a year for 10 years. So that's the second step. It's like, declaration. I want to be a millionaire in 10 years. 2, what do I have to invest for a certain interest rate over that 10 years to become a millionaire? $60,000 a year. So now we know, or $5,000 a month. So if we make that declaration that I want to be a millionaire in 10 years so that my survival expenses are covered, I still plan on working, I'm not done yet, that type of thing. But at least those essentials are covered, so I don't have to go make those donuts. I can just make more of the, for the upgraded lifestyle, that type of thing. Then what that is then we know we have a plan. That starts the financial plan. And money's made in the margins. And so this is called profit first, or pay yourself first. So you're paying yourself first that $5,000 off the top of everything you make for 10 years because you've declared you're going to be a millionaire. So now when we take that $5,000 off per month and we put that first, now we have to live on what's left over, whatever that is, right?
Yeah.
We live on what's left over. Now, if we do that and we make the second declaration is I will not go into consumer credit card debt. Because when we go into debt, we're spending money we don't have. And every time we go into debt, we increase the cost of our lifestyle. And, what debt allows us to do is, let's just say I make $100,000 a year. Well, debt allows you, let's say, to borrow $10,000 a year. So let's say you spend 100 on your life and you borrow another 10 on your credit cards. Now you owe $110,000 of expenses, yet you only make $100,000. So how are you ever going to pay that 110 off? And that goes on and it grows and grows. So the second commitment is I will not go into personal debt. And I'm not going to, eat up my lifestyle with all these debt payments. So when we make the declaration of I'm going to be a millionaire in 10 years, and 2, I'm not going to go into personal debt, that means that 3, I'm going to live on what's left over in my paycheck after.
Right. And then that's when you make your decisions about,
So
well,
by holding those 2 commitments means now if there's a bunch of money left over and $1 million enough, and as long as we swept that $5,000 and put that aside, paid our taxes, that's been paid, we've paid all of our, month-to-month expenses. And now we have a bunch of cash left over. We want the purse, buy the purse, buy the shoes if they make you happy. But that keeps us out of the imposter syndrome. And that keeps us in alignment with our financial goals. Because if not, we're going to wind up 10 years older without the $1 million, in debt many times, and now we're behind, and now we're in the rat race, and now we're in the hustle, and we're still buying shit to make us feel like we're important because we have to keep that imposter syndrome image going. And that's what most people are doing their whole life, thinking someday this is all going to work itself out, but it doesn't. So it's as simple as that. And then what happens though is when we keep those 2 commitments, there's not many times some money there to buy the bag, because we're either buying the $5,000 bag or we're putting $5,000 away to become a millionaire.
and trust me, in a few years, you won't care about the bag. But
thank you. The trade-off. And so it's just always a series of trade-offs. And as we make more money, now let's say we double our income and we want to say, hey, I want $2 million in 10 years, doubled my income so I can double the amount and I can have a little bit more. But see, this is us taking control of our own lives to know what's important and then making the behavioral choices that are in alignment with being financially secure, having some assets.
I was just going to say, though, if you're listening to this and she's talking about $60,000 and you don't even make $60,000 a year, so you got to start somewhere. And I think the greatest advice you gave us is to see what it's costing you hard copy to live every single day. What does it cost per day? What does it cost per week? What does it cost per month? What is an automatic charges? What are you getting charged for that perhaps is something you could eliminate?
And I'm speaking to many times our higher income earners, and I'm using numbers. So in 10 years, if we were to do a short time frame like 10 years, you're probably close to $5,000+ a month. But you could expand that out and do 20 years. So now we can take it down to half. It's like if we have 20 years to do that. But it's just understand that money is math, and financial security comes with financial discipline. It comes with knowing your numbers. It comes with this reverse engineering. It comes with these declarations. And then it's pretty simple. But when we're living a lifestyle we can't afford, and what I mean we can't afford means we're not taking care of that future self, then we're just making choices that are self-sabotaging or any chance to get out of the hustle and the grind.
And so can we talk about your beautiful daughter, Macy, who's unfortunately gorgeous and smart and she had great parents too. But, if you're 24 and you start this habit of success early, by the time, and by the way, like you said, in 10 years, you're going to be 10 years older if you're still around. It's hard for a 24-year-old to think like 50, because that sounds like they should be dead. But if you're already listening to this and you're already 50, you still have time to help yourself, because inevitably you might say, well, I'll work till forever, but you may not have the health or the desire to want to put that kind of energy out every single year. So if you're a little bit older, what kind of suggestion would you make?
Well, the thing is there's going to become a day when we're older. So no matter, maybe we don't have, so if we're starting, so the thing, if you start early, that money starts compounding, that has a long time. So for example, what I taught the kids, Kayla and Macy, is I said, here's the thing, from the day you're making your first paycheck out of college, put away $750 a month. And the commitment is $750 a month for the rest of your life. So I don't care if you're making $30,000 a year or $3 million a year. Your commitment is for the life, let's say 40 years, for the life of your working self. Just save $750 a month and invest it. I don't even care what you invested in that case. Just put that away and live off of everything else after the $750. Because what they have when they start at 25, and then let's say they're done at 65, they have $5 million sitting there, which is about $250,000 of passive income. So all they have to do is, if they start young at 25 and they just do the 750, that's all they have to do. Now, that's hard to do when you're straight out of college and not making a lot of money, but I don't care. Just get used to it and then focus on increasing your income. But they don't have to, then again, if they're making $150,000 and it's just $750 a month, they get to spend it all if they're going to keep, because they have time, they have 40 years for that to compound and grow. So $750 a month would equal about $5 million a year, let's say. So now, if we're starting at 45, to have that same $5 million, we'd have to put away probably $10,000. I don't know what the numbers are, but by waiting, what happens is we have half as much time, so it's going to take a lot more money because we have half as much time for that to compound.
Exactly.
That's why we want to start young. And if we do nothing else but have our kids learn this, to just take $750 a month for the rest of their lives, our kids will never have financial problems. And if they have more money and they can even increase that, they can shrink the timeline. So now if we're older and we're doing this, whatever age, we're still going to have a 10-year older self that's not going to want to work as hard as we are now. So we can still determine, maybe it's $500,000, like we don't have as much time, but at least we can have $500,000 sitting there. And we can do these things, we can start that work now versus waiting until finances are better, or or still buying this life that quote unquote we can't afford. So it's really bottom line, and what I teach in the courses is you just have to know your numbers.
You keep saying that, it's math, but quite frankly, even with the last leadership group I just did, when you ask them what they don't know. A lot of entrepreneurs just figure out that they'll make it, eventually. And I think I'd like to punctuate something you said, and my favorite authors, he's the author of Atomic Habits. And if you're not familiar with, for our listeners, if you're not familiar, he talks about the tiny infinitesimal energy that happens between an atom. It's so tiny that it's almost negligible. And yet that habit, can be an atom bomb, but that energy. And if we can just start, and if you're listening to this and you just don't have anywhere what the kind of money she's talking about, starting the mentality of awareness and saving, awareness and building is going to help you get out of the rat race. And then maybe instead of, having weekends free, you do one thing that helps bring in a little bit of income that you can just pocket, that it's not usable. It just goes right into savings. Because really the issue is that too many of us don't have that cushion. And I think that the imposter syndrome is not just, I got to look good for everybody else, but you have to look good for you too. And if on the inside you're going, oh my God, I don't know, I'm going to pay the rent this month, or I'm going to pay the mortgage, it's really going to affect you. So in your program, you talk about in module 3, when you call Uncover, you talk about exercising the thought of money on money reallocation, right? And then of how and where to find $14,000 a year to respend or reallocate in one exercise. And so tell us a little bit about the program, because it really is it's the one-stop shop, in my opinion, for becoming wealthy, W-E-A-L-T-H-Y, so that you can be well, both financially and, whatever, on the other side. Tell us a little bit about the program.
Yeah, well, the program is everything that we need to know about money, but we weren't taught in school. What we don't understand is that if money were obvious, 82% of Americans wouldn't be paycheck to paycheck.
It's a lot.
Do you think a heavy majority of us are paycheck to paycheck? And what I mean by that is that gets confused with people that are maybe making $20 an hour and they can barely survive. That's one form of it, but we can be making $20,000 a month living to paycheck. What it means is that to pay this month's bills, or to pay we have to hustle this month to pay next month's bills. And what happens is that the more money we make, the more expensive our lifestyle gets, which means we have to keep up that hard work to pay the next month's bills and next month's bills. So when we're in that place, we have to sell the next house to pay the next month's bills, or we have to get our paycheck to pay the next month. That gets old after a while. But that's what we mean by paycheck to paycheck. And over 80% of Americans are paycheck to paycheck, regardless of income. So that statistic alone tells us that we don't understand money. If we understood money, it would be the opposite. It'd be 20% of people are paycheck to paycheck. So what that means is that there's all this stuff we don't know about money. And that's what I do, is I teach people about money. And the story that, where this all started is I was in real estate. I was in real estate sales. I was in my early 30s. And I grew up without anything, got into real estate, and I thought I won the lottery. I'm like, oh my God, this is so much money. What does a poor kid do that kind of feels like she wins the lottery? Well,
spend it.
I bought all the stuff, right? But the thing is money appeared to be working, because every month I would, I was top in sales and all things. And so I made enough money to pay all the bills. And that just, and if we got tight one month and overspent, I'd just be like, well, I'll just go sell another house. I'm good at this. I'd work a little harder and sell an extra house. And it'd be, got that last commission in, that type of thing. So that appeared to be working until one day I woke up and pretty much found myself divorced and single mother. And, all my time and energy went to fight this divorce over all this stuff, if you will. And I found myself penniless, in debt, penniless. We've been in this.
And on your deathbed.
Yeah, well, this was even before that, but this was, I mean, I couldn't pay the light bill. The only way my kids and I were able to survive is because colleagues at work had donated stuff to us, paid the electricity bill for 6 months, brought over blankets, gave us used furniture. And so on one hand, I was so grateful because, I got all these handouts and gifts, like they all rallied together and paid the utility bills.
Wow.
Amazing. On the other hand, I was so ashamed and disgusted because I thought I had to take handouts from colleagues at work, my peers, to be able to put food on the table for my kids. And it was existential despair. I mean, I beyond being divorced and single mom and scared to death, and now I'm broke, and now I have 6 figures of debt that, I had to pay for. And so once I got over my pity party, and realized nobody could save me but me, the question that I asked myself was, how the hell did I get here? How the hell did I make all of that money, hundreds of thousands of dollars per year for, many years? How was it possible that I made that amount of money and wound up in a place where I was dead broke and literally could not feed my children, and then had to face that disgust and shame and, all the stuff? So what I realized is that there's got to be more to this money game that meets the eye. And that became my turning point because I said, I never want to be in this place again, ever. And so that became that moment in time where I studied money. And it was that study that I realized, like, holy cow, like, why do we not know this? Now I'm here today. I never did this stuff. I never thought I'd be a financial coach. I never thought I'd be a financial teacher. I studied for my own sake, for myself and for my kids, because I didn't want us to wind up there again. But the takeaway there, and the reason why I tell that story, is that learning journey, I realized that there's so much to money we don't know. And it's kind of one big rigged financial system out there. And we're just in drift and we're oblivious. We're just at the mercy of kind of hoping it's all going to work out.
Yeah.
Versus taking that our financial control into our own hands. So that's what my program does. It teaches us money, what we need to know about money, money's laws, money operations. And then I teach what I call my wise money method for how to become a millionaire in a paint by numbers approach, so that we can re-engineer, and like you said, those atomic habits, the atomic financial habits, that we can start rebuilding and create new mindsets and new money muscles, so that we can get out of what I call the financial, we're on two trajectories. What I call the financially effed trajectory, or the financially free trajectory. And most of us are on the financially effed trajectory, like we're going to wind up in a financial situation that is some form of crisis, or we can learn how to become financially free. And financially free is available to all of us. We just have to learn what we don't know, and we have to change our behaviors according to money's laws and principles.
Like you said, unfortunately, kids, we were not taught in school. We were not taught budgets. We were not taught any kind of fiscal responsibility. And that's not our fault, but here's our chance to change today what happens the rest of your life. So I know that you're starting a new program in March, and it's 12 weeks. And, when you get done, you can't say, I didn't know. Let's put it that way. You can't say, it's like the Siri of financial freedom, if you ask me, because it's like you said, you can, and here's the best part for me, Krisstina, is you're so giving. You're totally willing to sit with somebody for 30, 45 minutes and see if it's a fit. Because, if they don't have the mindset to really want to change, they're not going to change. So you really make that determination. It's 45 minutes of a complimentary session with you. You have even quizzes that you give away so that people can figure out where they are in the spectrum of learning how to handle money.
Yeah, so if anybody wants to go to, I don't know, I think you have the quiz on your site, so people take the quiz. That's a financial IQ quiz, just to see like where am I sitting with my financial IQ? And if we're sitting below a certain percentage, that's kind of the ding ding to say, hey, I might want to learn something here. But I mean, money's a life skill. And it's a life skill that we want to master. And what we don't understand, that mastering money is actually pretty easy, but it's not obvious. It has to be learned.
Well, it's another great session with great Krisstina Wise and her Wealthy program. Her Wise Money Method, it's available to you. We'll give you the link. In the meantime, just go to womenswisdomnetwork.com and /Money Mondays. It'll give you all the information you want. But here's the thing: if you're not done being sick and tired, then don't go there. But if you're done being sick and tired of worrying about it, if you know that you've got kids and people that depend on you, or you just have to, you're alone and you need to take care of yourself, this is an opportunity for you to take control. And I would want to thank you, Krisstina. You're just so giving. Falling for Money is a great book. Do something today that's going to change your tomorrow. And join us again next Monday for Money Mondays with Krisstina Wise, the Wise Money Method. Go to womenswisdomnetwork.com /Money Mondays. Get more information, register, and get yourself involved in how to take care of you. Thanks so much for joining us on this segment for Imposter Syndrome. Join us again next week.